Welcome to today's intermediate English practice. I'm excited to share 3 inspiring stories that will challenge your listening abilities while teaching you valuable vocabulary about success, perseverance, and personal growth. Our first story follows Dr. Rachel Kim, a medical researcher who faces the biggest challenge of her career. Listen for scientific vocabulary, professional expressions, and examples of determination in the face of failure. Dr. Rachel Kim had been working on a cure for a rare genetic disease for over 8 years, dedicating her entire career to understanding the complex molecular mechanisms that cause children to suffer from this devastating condition. Her laboratory at the University Medical Center had become her second home, filled with sophisticated equipment, countless research papers, and the quiet determination of a scientist who refused to give up. The disease affected fewer than 1 in 50,000 children worldwide, which meant that pharmaceutical companies showed little interest in funding research for what they considered an unprofitable venture. Rachel had watched too many families struggle with the heartbreak of watching their children deteriorate, knowing that without a breakthrough, these young patients had limited time and treatment options. Rachel's research focused on gene therapy, a cutting-edge approach that involved introducing healthy genetic material into patients' cells to compensate for the defective genes causing their illness. The theoretical foundation was solid, but translating scientific theory into practical treatment had proven extraordinarily difficult. For years, Rachel had experienced a series of near misses and disappointing setbacks. Experiments that looked promising in laboratory conditions would fail when tested on animal models. Treatments that worked effectively on mice would prove ineffective or even harmful when scaled up for larger mammals. Each failure meant months of additional research, revised hypotheses, and the emotional toll of knowing that children continued suffering while she searched for answers. The most challenging aspect of Rachel's work wasn't the technical complexity, but the psychological pressure of knowing that lives depended on her success. She received emails from desperate parents, sharing photos of their children, asking about her progress, hoping for any sign that a cure might be possible. These messages motivated Rachel to continue working, but they also weighed heavily on her conscience during moments of doubt and frustration. Rachel's colleagues in other research fields often questioned her decision to focus on such a rare condition. "You could be working on cancer research or heart disease," they would suggest. "You could impact millions of lives instead of thousands." But Rachel felt a personal connection to her work that transcended purely statistical considerations of impact and influence. The breakthrough came during what Rachel later described as the darkest period of her career. She had just received notification that her primary research grant would not be renewed, meaning she would lose funding for her laboratory within 6 months. The university administration, while sympathetic to her dedication, could not justify continued investment in research that had not yet produced tangible results. Feeling desperate and running out of time, Rachel decided to try a completely different approach that challenged conventional wisdom in her field. Instead of trying to replace defective genes entirely, she experimented with a technique that would edit the existing genetic code, making precise changes that could restore normal function without introducing foreign genetic material. This approach required Rachel to master new laboratory techniques and collaborate with researchers in fields she had never studied before. She spent sleepless nights learning about CRISPR gene editing, studying biochemical pathways she had previously ignored, and developing experimental protocols that combined multiple advanced technologies. The first results were modest, but encouraging. Laboratory cultures showed signs of improved cellular function, and computer simulations suggested that the treatment approach might be viable. Rachel felt cautiously optimistic, but knew that preliminary results had disappointed her before, so she maintained realistic expectations while pushing forward with expanded testing. The real validation came when Rachel's treatment showed consistent, reproducible results across multiple animal models. Not only were the animals showing improvement, but the treatment appeared to have minimal side effects and could potentially be administered through relatively simple medical procedures rather than complex surgical interventions. Rachel's research suddenly attracted attention from pharmaceutical companies, medical journals, and patient advocacy groups that had previously shown little interest in her work. The same colleagues who had questioned her focus on rare diseases now praised her innovative approach and groundbreaking methodology. More importantly, Rachel received approval to begin Phase 1 human clinical trials, the first step toward making her treatment available to the children and families who had been waiting so patiently for hope. The first young patient to receive Rachel's experimental treatment was 7-year-old Emma, whose parents had been following Rachel's research for 3 years. When Emma's test results showed significant improvement after just 3 months of treatment, Rachel experienced the profound satisfaction that comes from knowing that years of dedication, sacrifice, and perseverance had finally produced something meaningful. But even more rewarding than professional recognition was the phone call from Emma's mother, crying tears of joy as she described her daughter's increased energy and improved quality of life. Rachel's breakthrough represented more than just scientific achievement. It demonstrated the power of persistence in the face of seemingly impossible challenges, and the importance of maintaining vision and dedication even when progress seems elusive and support feels limited. Let's analyze this research breakthrough story. What specific challenges did Dr. Rachel Kim face in her research career? Why did pharmaceutical companies show little interest in funding her work initially? What innovative approach did Rachel try when her funding was threatened? How did Rachel's colleagues' attitudes change after her breakthrough? What made her success more meaningful than just professional achievement? These questions help you practice understanding scientific vocabulary and analyzing problem-solving processes in professional contexts. Our second story explores social entrepreneurship and community impact through the journey of Marcus Williams, who transforms a personal tragedy into a movement that changes thousands of lives. This narrative will help you practice business vocabulary, social impact terminology, and expressions related to community development and systemic change. Marcus Williams never intended to become a social entrepreneur. His original plan was straightforward: complete his MBA, join a prestigious consulting firm, climb the corporate ladder, and build the kind of successful business career that would provide financial security and professional prestige. However, life has a way of redirecting our paths in unexpected directions, and Marcus's transformation began with a tragedy that shattered his conventional ambitions. Marcus grew up in East Cleveland, a neighborhood that had been systematically neglected by city planners, abandoned by businesses, and forgotten by politicians who found it easier to ignore problems than address their root causes. Despite these challenges, Marcus's mother, Angela, had worked multiple jobs to ensure her son could attend good schools and access opportunities that might lift him out of the cycle of poverty that trapped so many of their neighbors. Angela's dream was to see Marcus become the first college graduate in their family, and she sacrificed everything to make this possible. She worked as a hospital cleaner during the day, cleaned office buildings at night, and took on weekend catering jobs to pay for Marcus's tutoring, books, and college application fees. Her dedication paid off when Marcus earned a full scholarship to study business at a prestigious university. During Marcus's second year of graduate school, he received a devastating phone call. Angela had suffered a heart attack while working her night shift at the office building. She was rushed to the emergency room, but the damage was too severe. The doctors explained that years of stress, inadequate health care, poor nutrition due to working multiple jobs, and the physical demands of manual labor had weakened her cardiovascular system beyond repair. Marcus returned home for his mother's funeral feeling not just grief, but rage. Angela had worked herself to death trying to provide opportunities for her son, but the system that forced her into this impossible situation remained unchanged. Thousands of other mothers in their neighborhood faced the same impossible choices: work multiple, exhausting jobs to support their families, or watch their children struggle without resources and opportunities. After graduating with his MBA, Marcus shocked his professors and classmates by declining lucrative job offers from major corporations. Instead, he returned to East Cleveland with a radical idea. What if businesses could be designed not just to generate profits for shareholders, but to solve systemic social problems while creating sustainable economic opportunities for the communities most in need? Marcus's vision was to create a social enterprise that would address multiple interconnected challenges facing low-income communities: unemployment, lack of access to healthy food, inadequate job training, and the absence of locally owned businesses that kept economic resources within the neighborhood rather than extracting them to benefit outside investors. The concept he developed was elegantly simple, yet revolutionary in its potential impact. Marcus would establish urban farming operations on vacant lots throughout East Cleveland, employing local residents to grow organic vegetables that would be sold to restaurants, grocery stores, and farmers markets throughout the greater Cleveland area. However, transforming this vision into reality required Marcus to master skills they had never taught him in business school. He needed to understand urban agriculture, navigate complex city regulations, build relationships with community leaders who were initially skeptical of his motives, and develop financial models that could sustain both social impact and economic viability. The first challenge was securing access to land. Many of the vacant lots in East Cleveland were tied up in legal complications, owned by the city through tax foreclosure processes, or controlled by absent landlords who had no interest in community development. Marcus spent months attending city council meetings, building relationships with local government officials, and learning to navigate bureaucratic processes that seemed designed to discourage rather than facilitate positive change. Equally challenging was building trust within the community itself. Many residents had witnessed well-intentioned outsiders arrive with promises of transformation, only to abandon their projects when they encountered the first serious obstacles. Marcus needed to prove that his commitment was genuine and long-term, not just another feel-good initiative that would disappear when the initial enthusiasm wore off. Marcus began by starting small, converting a single vacant lot into a demonstration garden where he worked alongside volunteers from the neighborhood. He organized community meetings where residents could share their ideas, concerns, and suggestions for how the project should develop. Rather than imposing his vision from above, Marcus created a collaborative process where community members became co-creators of the enterprise they were building together. The agricultural component of the business grew slowly but steadily. Marcus hired local residents and provided them with training not just in farming techniques, but in business skills, financial literacy, and leadership development. The urban farms began producing high-quality organic vegetables that found eager customers among Cleveland's restaurants and health-conscious consumers who appreciated knowing that their food purchases were supporting community development. But Marcus's vision extended beyond agriculture. As the farming operations became profitable, he reinvested the proceeds into additional community enterprises: an urban kitchen where residents could start food-based businesses, a tool library where community members could borrow equipment for home improvement projects, and a small business incubator that provided mentorship and microloans to aspiring local entrepreneurs. The multiplier effects of Marcus's social enterprise model began compounding over time. Employees who had gained experience in the urban farming operations started their own related businesses. Property values in the neighborhood began stabilizing as vacant lots were transformed into productive community assets. Young people who had previously seen few local examples of successful entrepreneurship began viewing business ownership as an achievable goal rather than an impossible dream. 5 years after returning to East Cleveland, Marcus's organization employed over 200 local residents, operated on 15 different sites throughout the neighborhood, and had helped launch 43 new small businesses. More importantly, the model had been replicated in 6 other cities, creating a movement of community-controlled economic development that challenged traditional assumptions about how business success should be measured and achieved. Let's examine this social entrepreneurship journey. What personal tragedy motivated Marcus to change his career direction? What interconnected challenges did Marcus aim to address through his social enterprise? How did Marcus build trust and credibility within the East Cleveland community? What were the multiplier effects of Marcus's urban farming initiative? How does Marcus's approach challenge traditional definitions of business success? These questions require understanding social impact vocabulary and analyzing community development strategies. Our final story explores personal transformation through mindfulness and mental health awareness. We'll follow Sarah Chen, a high-achieving corporate executive who discovers that success without inner peace is ultimately unsustainable. This story focuses on wellness vocabulary, work-life balance concepts, and the growing importance of mental health in professional environments. Sarah Chen appeared to have everything that modern society defines as success. At 32, she was the youngest vice president in her investment firm's history, managed a portfolio worth over $500 million, earned a 7-figure salary, and lived in a penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline. Her LinkedIn profile showcased an impressive collection of achievements: MBA from Wharton, multiple industry awards, and recognition as one of the top 40 under 40 business leaders in her city. However, behind this polished exterior, Sarah was struggling with chronic stress, insomnia, and a growing sense of emptiness that no amount of professional achievement seemed to fill. She worked 70-hour weeks as a matter of routine, checked emails compulsively even during vacations, and had experienced 3 panic attacks in the past year that she had hidden from her colleagues and clients. The turning point came during a particularly stressful period when Sarah was managing a complex merger that required round-the-clock attention for several months. She was surviving on 4 hours of sleep per night, consuming excessive amounts of caffeine, and had stopped exercising or maintaining social relationships outside of work. Her entire identity had become so intertwined with her professional performance that she had lost touch with who she was beyond her job title and achievements. During one late night at the office, Sarah experienced what her doctor later diagnosed as severe burnout. She found herself unable to concentrate, overwhelmed by anxiety, and questioning whether the career she had worked so hard to build was worth the toll it was taking on her physical and mental health. Rather than taking medication or simply pushing through the crisis, Sarah decided to explore mindfulness meditation after reading about its benefits for stress reduction and emotional regulation. She began with just 10 minutes of daily meditation using a smartphone app, initially skeptical about whether such a simple practice could address the complex pressures of her high-stakes professional environment. The changes were subtle at first, but became increasingly noticeable over several months. Sarah found that regular meditation helped her maintain perspective during stressful situations, make clearer decisions under pressure, and communicate more effectively with both colleagues and clients. She began sleeping better, experiencing fewer physical symptoms of stress, and rediscovering interests and relationships she had neglected during her single-minded pursuit of career advancement. Most surprisingly, Sarah's improved mental clarity and emotional balance actually enhanced her professional performance rather than detracting from it. She became more creative in solving complex problems, more skilled at managing client relationships, and more effective at leading her team through challenging projects. Inspired by her personal transformation, Sarah began advocating for workplace wellness initiatives at her firm. She organized lunchtime meditation sessions, pushed for policies that encouraged work-life balance, and shared her experience with younger employees who were following similar paths of unsustainable overwork. Sarah's story demonstrates that true success requires not just external achievements, but internal well-being and sustainable practices that support long-term performance rather than short-term results at the expense of health and happiness. Let's analyze this wellness transformation. What symptoms of burnout was Sarah experiencing despite her professional success? How did mindfulness meditation initially impact Sarah's daily life? What unexpected effect did improved mental health have on Sarah's work performance? How did Sarah use her experience to help others in her workplace? Advanced vocabulary mastery. Today's stories introduced sophisticated vocabulary across multiple professional domains: medical research, molecular mechanisms, gene therapy, clinical trials, pharmaceutical development, social entrepreneurship, systemic inequality, community development, multiplier effects, sustainable solutions, mental wellness, chronic stress, burnout, mindfulness meditation, emotional regulation. Complex grammar applications. We practiced several challenging intermediate structures. Advanced conditionals. If Rachel had given up, thousands of children would have continued suffering. Past perfect continuous. Angela had been working multiple jobs for years. Subjunctive expressions. Sarah wished she had discovered mindfulness earlier. Complex passive constructions. The breakthrough was achieved through years of dedicated research. Professional communication patterns. Cause and effect relationships. Resulted in, led to, brought about, contributed to. Contrast and concession. However, nevertheless, despite the fact that, although. Emphasis and evaluation. Significantly, remarkably, profoundly, ultimately. Professional register. Implement, optimize, facilitate, demonstrate, establish. Contemporary themes and social awareness. These stories addressed current issues relevant to intermediate learners: work-life balance and sustainable career development, social responsibility in business and community development, mental health awareness in professional environments, innovation and perseverance in challenging circumstances, critical analysis applications. Practice discussing these complex topics. Research ethics and funding. How should society prioritize medical research for rare diseases? Social entrepreneurship versus traditional charity. Which approach creates more lasting change? Success redefinition. How has the concept of professional success evolved in recent years? Workplace wellness. What responsibility do employers have for employee mental health? Advanced speaking practice. Try expressing opinions about these intermediate level issues. Evaluate trade-offs between personal ambition and social responsibility. Compare different approaches to solving community problems. Analyze the relationship between individual success and collective well-being. Discuss the role of purpose in professional fulfillment. Listening strategy enhancement. For continued B1, B2 development, identify implicit themes and underlying messages in complex narratives. Understand professional contexts and workplace dynamics. Follow character development across extended time periods. Recognize social and cultural references in contemporary discussions. Writing and discussion extensions. Summarize each character's journey, focusing on key decision points. Compare the three stories' approaches to overcoming challenges. Reflect on personal experiences related to these themes. Propose solutions for similar situations in your own context. Exam preparation strategies. For B2 certification success, practice identifying main themes and supporting evidence in extended passages. Demonstrate cultural understanding of professional and social contexts. Express nuanced opinions using sophisticated vocabulary and grammar. Show awareness of contemporary issues affecting global communities. Professional development applications. These stories provide vocabulary and concepts useful for business presentations about innovation and social responsibility, job interviews discussing career motivation and values, networking conversations about industry trends and personal development, academic discussions about contemporary social and business issues, self-assessment for B2 readiness. You're approaching B2 level when you can understand implicit meanings without explicit explanation. Follow complex arguments about social and professional issues. Express sophisticated opinions about contemporary challenges. Engage with abstract concepts like social responsibility and personal fulfillment. Remember, B1, B2 level English requires understanding not just what people say, but why they say it, and how it connects to broader social, professional, and cultural contexts. These stories provide practice with the analytical thinking and cultural awareness necessary for advanced intermediate proficiency. Keep challenging yourself with content that reflects real-world complexity and contemporary issues.